Hi everyone, Lee Pacchia here, and I'm joined now by Professor Lenni Benson. She's a professor of law at New York Law School, and she's also the director of the Safe Passage Project, and she's here to talk to us about the immigration crisis going on the border of the southern United States. Thanks for stopping by.
Sure, glad to be here.
This is a really tough story. We're seeing a lot of images of young children, unaccompanied minors, stuck in detention centers on the border of the southern United States. I want to start off by asking why this situation is so bad right now. Did the situation abroad change, sending all of these unaccompanied minors to the United States, or is this something that's happened with our system that's changed, that's causing a glut?
So, typical law professor, I'm going to give you a complex answer.
Right on.
It is definitely multivariate. There are new push factors in the region. The three large sending countries are El Salvador, Guatemala, and Honduras. Mm-hmm. And if you look at the list of countries that are the most dangerous places in the world with the highest levels of social endemic violence, those three are in the top 6. Honduras is the murder capital of the world. And in recent years, civil life there has, in some of the cities, not everywhere, has become so unstable that particularly young children who don't have strong family protection are extremely vulnerable to be preyed upon by organized crime, gangs, and corrupt police. So what's begun to happen, and I base my answer on more than 250 interviews of children. We run a project, the Safe Passage Project, that meets children at the immigration court, and we conduct interviews with the children with volunteer lawyers and volunteer students. And based on those screenings, the number of children telling us that they're leaving because they couldn't stay, that they had to stay locked in their home, they weren't safe on the street, their schools were closed, there was no recess because it was too dangerous, their parents worried for them, their grandparents taking care of them sometimes said you have to go, definitely new push factors. Mm-hmm. But it is also true that the media is paying attention to this now, but my project's been running for many years because there's been a growing phenomena of unaccompanied children migrating to the United States, but also to other parts of the world. And the children that are apprehended at the border, those three countries, Guatemala, El Salvador, Honduras, the Border Patrol can't just push them back. That would be illegal for the Border Patrol to do. It would violate the law. We have a statute called the Trafficking Victims Protection Act, and it says that when children are traveling alone under the age of 18 and they present themselves at a border, they're apprehended at the border, unless they're from Mexico or Canada, we can't just immediately return them. Mm-hmm. We have to give them a chance to make a claim for protection. So
this current crisis that we're seeing today, is it more a problem with our immigration laws, or is it a problem with the way we handle asylum applications, or is it all the same thing?
Well, they're definitely intertwined and related. I would say we are definitely dealing with a refugee crisis, a humanitarian crisis. And we have a few remedies in our immigration law. Asylum law is part of immigration law. We also have something called temporary protected status, which gives you a right to live here temporarily and to work, but doesn't give you a green card, the right to citizenship, on a path of citizenship. But it is partially a broken immigration law because a number of these children are motivated to leave the home country because mom or dad is here. Mm-hmm. And mom and dad have been here and they've been working. Some of those parents actually have some kind of temporary status, but there's no family reunification benefit. So as the grandpa passes away, or it becomes more dangerous in the home country, and a parent is working here and supporting maybe the family back home, and the kid's alone and in danger, it's a rock and a hard place. So a lot of kids actually are initiating the journey on their own, and they're trying to escape the dangerous situation, and they're trying to find and reunify with a parent. And most of us say, well, why can't they use the legal immigration system? We don't have a visa for that. If an aunt or an uncle wants to rescue a niece whose mom or dad has passed away or is unable to care for them, there's no aunt or uncle visa for nieces and nephews.
This is a brutal story because we're talking about kids that are really, really quite young and going through some very difficult times without a clear system or process in place to kind of handle these applications. We were talking before about the Vulnerable Immigrant Voice Act. Can you talk to us about it?
Well, there's a couple of bills that have been quickly introduced in Congress, and some of them have some positive aspects. So Barbara Mikulski, for example, is advocating for lawyers to be provided for children. People don't know this. Children don't get free counsel. So unlike any other area of American legal system, children in immigration proceedings have to stand up in court alone.
Which is insane.
It's insane.
I mean, what do you do with a 5-year-old who doesn't speak English?
Right.
Put him in front of an immigration judge. I mean, it's...
Well, what about a 15-year-old?
Right.
I mean, I agree we have more compassion for the 5-year-old, but just think of any 15 or 14-year-old you know. Imagine them trying to articulate and understand a legal system. And the government's represented by counsel, and the judge is on the bench. But what my project does is try to fill that gap a little bit by finding pro bono lawyers. So anyone who's watching this who wants to get trained, they can contact me.
There's a lot of unemployed lawyers out there looking for something to do. This is
a
good way to get involved.
Or underemployed, or even employed but want to do a pro bono project of, it's really limited in scope, really. I can't say it will be over extremely quickly, but you make a huge difference in a child's life. And that's part of the story. A lot of these kids do qualify for legal protection under both international law and domestic law. And so if they had a lawyer, the lawyer would know how to advocate and speak for the child. But in Congress, they may vote tomorrow in the House, one of the bills would say that children from those 3 countries, El Salvador, Guatemala, and Honduras, are going to be put into a special deportation proceeding called an expedited removal proceeding. New section of the code. Has to be held in 7 days. Kid has to be detained continuously. Judge has to rule whether they have any kind of fear. And of course, they don't have a lawyer during this proceeding. And if the judge finds no fear, back they go, they'll be deported. So I think that might be unconstitutional, might violate international law, and really isn't the way that we should go. We've fought so hard and so long in this country to develop our due process and protection of human rights. I think we need to be a leader in the world on human rights. We often criticize other nations who don't protect victims of problems. This is the wrong approach. And I also think people should understand that there's a lot of myths out there. Some of the media are really exploiting the situation, and some politicians are. Let's be calm, let's put it in context. Yes, a lot of children arrive this year, but I started practicing law in the 1980s, and in the mid-80s, this country had 450,000 applications for asylum a year. And we've only had 50,000 kids or so arrive. So in context, this is not something we can't handle. We're a country of 350 million people.
Right, but they weren't packed into detention centers,
That's
one
true.
on top of another for days and weeks on end. I mean, something's amiss here. I just don't
we
get it.
didn't know they were coming, and the government didn't have this. The government has to be careful about how they detain children, so it actually takes them a while to find the appropriate detention space. Plus, there's a Supreme Court case, Reno v. Flores, which is still a consent decree against the federal government that says you're not supposed to detain children. It's a last resort. And so yet they still have to process the kids and find a way to either release them to a relative, an adult who's been vetted, a family member, or they have to keep them in a detention center. Did you know that in New York there are 300 kids in detention?
No,
And there have been
that.
for years.
Huh.
They're in Westchester.
This is a story that I think we're going to be talking about for a long time.
Please
Lenni,
call in
thank
me
you
to
so
talk
much for
about
stopping
it.
by.
Thanks, Lee. Bye.
That's Professor Lenni Benson from New York Law School. If you'd like to see more of the stuff the law school is working on, be sure to go check them out on YouTube. And you can always follow them on Twitter. I'm Lee Pacchia. Thanks for watching.